Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Training Unleashed. We're going to have a great time because today, for the first time ever, I had a guest say, "Is it okay for me to argue with you, Evan?" So I'm totally looking forward to that. Before we get
Great.
started, I want to, on behalf of the Learning Network, thank you for being here. And I also want to thank my sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. And also remind everyone we now have a YouTube channel, Training Unleashed Network. Today, I have with me Dave MacDonald with an organization, a company called Better Together. Now, I love this name. I actually have a keynote speech called Better Together. And so I talk about this subject all the time, but my context is probably different than yours. And of course, you're the guest. So, Dave, why Better Together? Why'd you come up with that name?
Wow, that's thank you for asking and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'll look forward to getting a copy of that keynote. I hope it's on YouTube. I can check it out there. But for me, Better Together really came spur of the moment. I had started my business in 2005 as an employment agency and made a couple of acquisitions over time. And my kind of fourth acquisition, I was standing in front of the team. It was a larger team than mine, and they were all like wondering, why are we getting together? Like, why would you buy our business? We're competitors. Why would we do this? And in the conversation with them, I just said, I believe that as an organization, we will be better together. And that was when I bought Help Unlimited. And that became the name of the parent company over top of the three brands: Revolution Staffing, Help Unlimited, and Essential Staffing.
Better Together for me in my keynote, and by the way, I have a website, evanhackel.com. But I don't have a full version of my keynote there, but is really the concept of businesses working better together. So
Mm,
I do a lot of work in the franchise space and the co-op space. And
okay.
when everyone sort of all knows where they're going, all paddling in the same direction, it's very effective. But when everyone's paddling in their own direction, the ship just goes in circles and circles and circles.
Absolutely.
Um,
I totally agree with that. What we found as a result of the name change and bringing Better Together to the forefront is that it's actually exemplary of everything that I do in the business. My relationships with my clients, my relationships with my candidates, we're better when we work together. We're like it's so true of our team that we have specialists that do different things. And so that's really, not only has it come out as a name for us, but it is kind of an underlying philosophy of how we do things.
well, one of the things, Dave, when I did my research on you, is the big thing you focus on is hiring the right people, right? Putting the
Mhm.
right people on the bus.
Mhm.
And part of what's important from your perspective is a value match. And I think
Yes.
that's important for most people. And, one of the things I find is if you say to somebody, "Hey, do you value integrity?" What are they going to say? No.
Yeah, no, I hate integrity, man. That's awful. Yeah, of course. Everybody, how can you can't say that you don't like integrity for sure.
So how do you ask questions in interviewing and talking to potential employees to really find out if they're a value match, or were they smart enough to read your website and know what your values were before they got to the meeting?
Sure, sure. Traditionally, we do use this method, but recruiters forever have been talking about behavioral questions. Like, so help give me an example of it's exactly what you're doing with me right now. Tell me about a time when. But the key thing for me is not just getting that initial story, but asking the subsequent follow-up questions that really get into understanding how well and how aligned that story fits with your principles around integrity. Because the reality is, well, there's really only one definition for integrity, in my opinion. Um, it's who are you when no one else is watching?
Hmm.
That's what integrity is are you the same when no one else is watching you?
Integrity is an interesting value.
Right.
So I once worked with a client who one of their values was integrity, yet he was hiding something from his employees and from his customers. And I said, this doesn't appear to me to be exemplifying integrity. And he said, no, it doesn't exemplify transparency. And I'm going, that's
Mm,
splitting hairs. That doesn't sound like high integrity
mm.
to me. But
Well, that goes to the question of, is integrity an active or a passive virtue? So lots of people believe that you can lie by not telling the truth, and some
yeah,
people believe that by not telling the truth, as long as I tell only the truth, I'm not a liar. But if you withhold information that people need to know, and you have an obligation to them, either morally or professionally, then
yeah,
I think that that's a lie.
I'm definitely in the camp that hiding information is a form of lying. I call it evasive communication. In
Yeah,
actuality, and I might not have brought it up, but you said, we could debate the issues here a little bit.
for sure.
I don't believe any company should have a value of integrity. And
Ooh, I like that.
no,
Let me
and
think about that.
the reason is I think it's a given in the business world that you have to have integrity. It's like you have to breathe. You have to have water to live. That, think of a business that literally chooses not to have integrity on the list. What does that say about the business? I just assume that honesty and integrity are a business given, not a differentiator, and is part of a company and doesn't need to be stated as an actual value. What are your thoughts?
I really like that statement, Evan. And if I didn't work in the sectors in which I work, I may be inclined to agree with you. But working in our business in Revolution Staffing works primarily in trucking,
Yeah,
which has a low entry point of entry, and so has a lot of players in it that are not professional. And our staffing business is also a business that is a fairly low barrier to entry, and has, I would just tell you, lots of people doing everything from human trafficking to a total professional representation of employees that is equitable and fair to all parties. And so when you work in a scheme that is as broad as that, integrity is a differentiator for us.
hmm.
And how you define it is important.
Well, that's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about defining integrity, because I
Okay.
do think people define it differently. Uh, what are the options of how to define integrity?
Well, can I just give you a little example of it from
Please.
this very day? So July 1st, we took one of our offices and we closed it. We've gone to remote work for our recruiters largely. So we maintain a corporate office, but we've given up now all of our recruiting sites because all of my recruiters want to work from home. The best talent in the market wants to work from home or wants to have the option. And so we've pivoted from physical locations to work from home for most of our people. And uh, Help Unlimited had a 15-year relationship with that landlord prior to my purchasing it 5 years ago or whatever. So like a 20-year business relationship. And I said to Joe, the owner, I said, Joe, we're giving our notice, and I want you to know I'm committed to having a pleasant and peaceful exit from you. We don't have a lease. We can give you 30 days and terminate at any time we want. But I want you to feel like I treated you fairly, and I want to feel like you treated me fairly. But I'll do anything that I can on my side. And so today, and he said to me, no problem, Dave. We got no issues. You guys have been long-term tenants. You're great people. We'll work it out. So they let us out in 30 days, as was my request. And I said to him, like, Joe, when we're going on getting our furniture out, it may take us an extra couple days. I don't know what it's going to take. I just don't know. And the market for selling office furniture is not great, shall we say, right now. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, I said to him, um, I said, I just won't have us part in a negative fashion. We're going to finish this relationship really as well as we've carried it on. And so, um, we still had office furniture in the building today, 8 days after the end of the month. And he had said, don't worry how long it takes to get them out. If you want to leave some stuff, leave it. If you can't, don't worry about it. We'll work it out together. So last week, while I was at the hospital caring for my brother-in-law, I got an email saying, "Hey, your furniture's still here. It's got to be gone. This is a problem." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll have it out on Monday." And so we had somebody there at the office today taking the furniture out, and they came and locked the door and changed the locks and said, "You can't take this furniture out until we get our prorated monthly rental." And I'm like, "But Joe, like you said, you didn't care how many days it was. It was no big deal. It's very open-ended, very just." He said, "Well, so I get him on the phone today. He's like, I was thinking 1 or 2 days. I wasn't thinking 8 or 10 days." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And so I sent him more money to pay for the prorated rent to get the furniture out than they were giving me for the rent. I could have just walked away from the furniture and said, "Well, great, then we'll just walk away. Don't worry about it. You can take care of getting rid of the furniture and take all that expenses." And I could have just lit a match to the relationship. But my commitment to him in the meeting was, I'm going to leave this in as positive a fashion as I possibly can. So I said, "Just tell me what the number is. I'll send you an e-transfer right now." And he did, and I did. And I think that that's what integrity is. We weren't contractual. I didn't have obligations, but my word was that we were going to leave in a positive fashion no matter what. And I ended up writing him a check to make sure that we did. Does that make sense?
So you lived in integrity. Your
Yes.
landlord,
No, I got, he has other people that are speaking into his ears that, I don't have any problems with Joe.
see,
Um,
there's another word that I think is a powerful word, which is living with and being in responsibility,
hmm,
right? And your landlord, who you asked for clarification, was open-ended and should have been in responsibility for the lack of clarity.
sure.
So people that don't know, this is being recorded just after 4th of July. So that adds, we're talking like 3 days, really, if you ignore the holiday, that you had your furniture there. But let's move on to the next part, because
Go ahead.
we've had people on here that talk about hiring, but most of the time people are talking about hiring people at the upper levels.
Sure.
And I know you have a lot of experience hiring people, and there's a word you use that I think is a really good word: essential people,
Mm-hmm.
that people that are, doing the hard work, but not the high income earners.
Yeah,
And
what I would say is I think of people that run the business and people that own or manage the business. And I really prefer to work with people that run the business, people that are involved in the daily, making sure that the widgets get made, making sure that the widgets get shipped, making sure that the widgets get billed, making sure that customers get a answer, the
but
people that make it happen.
does your company hire the truck drivers and the warehouse workers? Or,
Yes.
okay, so what are the keys? Because there's huge turnover issues at lower
Mm,
paying jobs. And I
mhm,
don't think people understand even remotely how much it costs them.
for sure.
And what are the keys? What is the advice that you would give people that are listening when they're hiring people at lower wages to find the right value mix, and to find and to hire people that are going to stay and be
Mhm,
contributors to the company, rather than people that are going to leave you when they find another job that pays them 50 cents more an hour?
sure. Um, so there's a couple of things. Um, I would say people have said I don't remember who the brilliant mind was that said hire slow, fire fast. But that's a good business principle. I believe in that. Um, but for me, what we're looking for is what people and these people in those levels of jobs really like this terminology. but we have a WTF philosophy. And WTF in my world doesn't necessarily stand for what you may think it does. In common everyday language, we talk to people that work hard, people that tell the truth, and people that have finishing skills, that people that finish the job. And just, to make it a little bit more palatable, I do have, biblical scripture references for each of those initials, even though it is WTF. So if you're deeply offended by the WTF, please, let me pivot to a more morally correct spot. And there's ways to define all of that from places that you would like. But for me,
So Dave, this is another opportunity to talk about responsibility. Because converting that incorrectly is the listener's responsibility, not yours.
Thank you very much. We had a WTF philosophy really in like 2004, 2005. It was before WTF was a thing. But my wife said to me one day, "Hey, did you know?" And my pure as white as the driven snow wife, just super naive and kind, knew what WTF was before I did. But anyways, we've turned it into kind of a bit of a thing that we talk about. And really, you want people that are hard workers, people that are diligent. You want people that tell the truth, the people that are filled with integrity, that they won't lie to you about things, that people that take ownership. And then you want people that have finishing skills, people that actually complete the task, and that they understand that completion isn't completed until it's been communicated that it's been completed. Does that make sense to you?
I love what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing is that these three skills, and I'm going here.
Sure.
What are they again?
W is work hard.
Work hard.
T is tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Love that. And the F is finishing skills.
Finish the job. Yeah.
Finish the job.
Finish the job. Yeah.
Looking to supercharge your training? Let's talk about learning management systems. That's right, LMS. Don't have one? We should talk. Have an old one? We should talk. Have one not doing what you need? We should talk. At the Learning Network, we take LMS very seriously. In fact, we have 4 different options because not everyone's needs are the same. We have state-of-the-art features, and we can make your training experiences special, interesting, and exciting. So check us out at learning.net. Hey, by the way, we also have a lot of off-the-shelf content by ourselves or our partners, Open Sesame, amazing authoring tools, all kinds of reporting tools, everything you need to have your learning management system take your company to the next level of training. Come to learning.net today. How do you know if somebody, I think a lot of people are not good at finishing the job.
You're right. And so what I would say is in the interview process, you don't know. You hope, you believe, you have good indications, but in the interview, you don't know. And let's just be honest about it. You don't. A phrase that I'm familiar with, and you may have heard before, is truth and time walk hand in hand. And so there's certain things in life you only know over having experienced time with them.
Yeah.
And if people have finishing skills, you only really know it after you've had 6 months or a year with them.
So can you give us some examples of questions that you would ask that would get to
The bottom of those?
knowing people, that people are going to tell the truth and they're going to, etc.
Sure. Yeah. So like a typical question around work hard is, tell me about a time when you've gone above and beyond, right? That would be on everybody's interview list. But what I would prefer to do is go to something more along the lines of tell me about a time when you worked with someone who you feel did not exemplify a work hard philosophy, and how did that make you feel, and how did you interact with that person?
Wow, that's a good question.
Okay. Because by them sharing an example of someone not doing it, if they really struggle to do that, I don't, unless they're a brand new worker, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And then you have all sorts of follow-up questions to that. Now tell me about a time when your work ethic really showed, maybe above and beyond what was expected of you, and where you either received accommodation or didn't receive accommodation, and how did that make you feel?
Hmm.
Right? So those types of questions, like that gets a person to a spot where they're really thinking behaviorally about, okay, here's a time when I did that. And you have to be patient with them, and you have to try to suss it out of them, really kind of draw things out of them. Being a good interview, can I just tell you, being a good interview is actually about liking people. And if you don't like people, you have no business interviewing people. If you don't enjoy the conversation, if you're not like reveling in those moments, then give the job to somebody else. Let someone who actually loves people have the conversations with the people, and trust them to do a good job of something that you're maybe not fully equipped to do.
I think that's a very good point. For me personally, one of my goals as an interviewer in hiring is to make the applicant feel super comfortable,
Mhm.
because I want them to relax to see the genuine person.
Mhm.
If I was hiring someone for a super tense job that was high stress, maybe I'd be different.
Right.
But, I don't want to not hire a good person because they felt intimidated in the interview.
Sure.
I want to put people at ease.
Well,
Um,
and so for me, the way you put people at ease is you give them examples of your own life that make them go, oh, this guy's a real person. This guy's not grilling me. This is a conversation. This is so when I have an interview with people now, I'm like, would you come in and have a coffee with me? Like, can we just sit and chat for a little while? I don't bring them into this like big corporate boardroom. I'm like, come on, let's sit, come sit down with me. Like, I want to know you as a person. And then as I know you as a person, I can understand your fit and feel for the culture of the organization.
I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. Do you do or believe in doing aptitude tests?
Yes. I would say my mom was more than aptitude, personality. But that personality type, disc, or phlegmatic, sanguine, cleric, melancholy. Um, I've got there's a bunch of them. There's hundreds of them. Like, are you a bear or a lion or a golden retriever or a porcupine? I don't remember what the four are for the animals, but they all have kind of different quips and questions, but they all get down to four things basically. Even Myers-Briggs, sorry, the 8 types from Myers-Briggs, but I love those personality tests as a conversation starter. And there's very few roles where that's a determinant as to whether or not they would be qualified for the role. But what they should do is make you more informed as a manager or as a trainer or as a colleague or coworker, even to understand who you're working with and how to best work together.
So
Sorry, how to work better together.
I work better. I have a term I like, which is curiosity,
Mm,
and to approach an interview from a point of view of curiosity. And when I look at aptitudes tests, I don't look at them as the definitive, this is who the person is, but a tool to get curious about the person that makes me think of different questions I might ask based on what I see in the test to learn more about them.
yeah, I would say that aptitude tests around skills and attitudes should never be determinative, but should be because they could come with bias. And there's going to be lots of people that say they all come with bias, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that if you use them with curiosity, and kindness, you'll be in a good spot.
Do you do any demonstration in a skilled position where people demonstrate the actual skill themselves?
Yeah, For our truck drivers, all of our truck drivers go through a process where they are road tested and kind of demonstrate the skills. Welders, it's super common. It's harder to do in an accounting function, or a customer service type role because there's a knowledge base that they may not have. While they
Yeah.
may have transferable skills, they may not have transferable knowledge. Um, so I would encourage that in most roles of skilled or skilled trades or things of that nature.
Cool. So Dave, you and I could talk forever.
Okay.
I'm sure our listeners and watchers are interested in knowing more about your company and what you do. And
Sure.
normally I say, tell us about your company. I'm going to say in this case, tell us about your companies. And I
Okay.
know you also have a great offer for everyone.
Great. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, so Better Together Group is made up of three different companies. Help Unlimited, which focuses on helping people hired skilled trade and semi-skilled trades. Light industrial workers is what the kind of common industry term would be for that. Revolution Staffing is really focused on commercial truck drivers. So 18 wheelers, straight trucks, even commercial G-class vehicles, finding people to fill those types of roles, which is very narrow niche. And then the last group would be Essential Staffing. And Essential Staffing provides direct hire or office worker type hiring solutions. So we can support companies if they're looking for a controller, if they're looking for a millwright, if they're looking for a plant manager, anything outside the C-suite. Obviously you're sponsored by C-suite TV, and I'm happy to support the C-suite. But the best areas that we support them in is stuff outside of the C-suite. We don't do a lot of work looking for CEOs, COOs, those types of things.
Well, that's a good thing because we have many people on the show as guests that are focused on that area. And I think they're not, it's not fair to say they're equally important. It's not fair to say one's more important than the other. They're both very important.
Right.
And, hiring people to do the essential jobs, as you're using your term, I think is really critical. And to do that well, in the franchise space is not unusual for a franchise company to have 100 to 150% turnover in a year. And, if you could change that to 50% turnover in a year, the amount you save in training, the amount you save in errors, the reduction in time, so you need fewer people if you have competent people, is massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear all sorts of crazy numbers around about that, whether it's 3 times their annual or, whatever to get somebody up to speed. I don't know what the right number is, but I would tell you that every time you lose somebody, you're losing more than $10,000. So if you can make
Yeah.
a better hire, it's worth it to spend $10,000 on a hire.
Well, it's interesting. I was working with a national a franchise. They had, let's just say somewhere, give or take, around 2,000 locations. So they're big time, not fast casual food concept.
Okay.
And I said, you're at 65% turnover rate. What would it be worth to you if you were at 35%? And he said, my problem is I need to be at 100% turnover rate because we're so bad at hiring, but we can't get good people to replace the bad people that we have. So we're stuck. And that's a bad place to be in, is because if you think about it, if you're not good at finding the right people, the people that stay are not necessarily people you want to have.
They're
But
generally
meanwhile,
not.
Dave, people are going to want to know how to reach you. What is your URL and what is
Sure.
your offer?
So you can reach us at bettertogethergroup.com. And probably to get to our offer, the best thing to do is to go to our podcast website, x2z.org. And there you'll see both myself and my daughter, and we both have offers around if you're hiring, you have specific needs, then we can help you with that. We have an interview book that you can pick up that we'll send to you for free, or a PDF of it immediately. And then my daughter has some keynote speaking around how to engage Generation Z. And so that's the purpose of our podcast, is me as an X talking to her as a Z, and how do we communicate and how do we exemplify for people how good communication works between those generations.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you have an offer with a hiring guide and interviewing questions, and you have a podcast with a lot of information about hiring Generation Z.
Yes,
So you're
that's right.
providing great information. This is a good time for me to encourage people to go to our website, trainingunleashed.net, because if you look up Dave's interview, all his URLs will be there, because that second one was a doozy. So the first one is bettertogethergroup.com. I got that one. But
Okay.
if you would share the offer one,
Sure.
that would be awesome.
X2, the letter T, the letter O, Z.com, or .org.
.org.
Yes.
X2T. Is there a meaning?
X2Z,
X2Z. Is there a meaning?
Well, it's from Generation X to Generation Z. That's what the podcast is all about. So from X2Z.org. Yeah.
Okay, now with the context, it's easier to remember. So Dave, as you know, we always end the show with our guests sharing one idea, one tip. That they had one tip to share, what would that one tip be?
Wow, I really like your comment about going curious in interviews. But the thing that I would share, and the thing that I would just recommend that everyone do, is if they would follow if they'd follow Zig Ziglar's advice, to help enough other people get out of life what they want, they'll have lots for themselves. And that's been kind of the mantra of my whole life, is I try to build into other people, to build them up and help them launch and to do the things that they do well. And as a result, my cup is overflowing.
In BNI, Business Networking International, they call it giver's gain.
Giver's gain.
But it's really, to the Zig Ziglar principle and the giver's gain principle, it's about giving without the attachment to the result.
Yes.
In other words, if you give because I know Dave's going to give me this, this, and this, that's not giving. That's trading. Giving is when you give with no expectation.
Yeah.
And that's the power, because maybe not every time, but sometimes, and maybe in different ways, karma comes back to you. So I totally, I love your tip. Your tip is great. That's what I'm trying.
The way my wife talks about it is living life with your hands open. Because everything that I have is open-handed. I don't grasp onto anything that I have. I don't grasp onto people. I don't grasp onto things. It's all here for the taking, and we just do with it what we can as we steward it.
Cool. Well, thank you for being a guest. On behalf of the Learning Network, I want to thank all of our listeners. And of course, I want to thank our sponsors, C-Suite TV, C-Suite Radio, and also check us out on YouTube, the Training Unleashed Network, or go to our website, trainingunleashed.net. Everyone have a great day.